The Welder's Scar by Cosmic Novels, Chapter 1. The silence of the void was a lie. Kaelen Rask felt the truth of it in the soles of his magnetic boots, a low, steady hum that vibrated up through his bones. It was the song of Stargate 738, a thrumming chorus of contained energies and quantum entanglement that spanned a dozen light years. To the young Academy engineers, it was just data on a screen. To Kael, it was a living pulse. His rig, a monstrosity of custom-forged alloys and exposed cabling, nicknamed the Forge, was clamped beside him on the gate's superstructure. It looked less like a precision instrument and more like something that belonged in a medieval smithy, glowing with a cherry-red heat at its core. He wasn't just repairing the gate, he was coaxing it, reasoning with it. His gloved hands moved with an unhurried grace, adjusting a plasma conduit here, retuning a gravitic stabilizer there. He closed his eyes, ignoring his helmet's diagnostic overlay. The numbers were liars. The feeling was truth. And right now, he felt a subtle arrhythmia, a quantum hiccup deep within the gate's heart. A problem the simulations would miss for another cycle, but one that could unravel the whole damn thing if left untended. A sharp, triple-pulse chime cut through the gate's song, echoing directly into his inner ear. A Priority Zero directive. Kaelen froze, his hand hovering over a coolant valve. He hadn't heard a Priority Zero in a decade. They were reserved for end-of-civilization events. Except, he grunted, his voice a low gravel. The voice that answered was sterile, stripped of all inflection. Engineer Rask, you are ordered to cease current operations. A transport is en route to your position. Your destination is Ethylan. Kaelen felt a coldness that had nothing to do with the void outside his suit. Ethylan, the great hub, the first and greatest work of the architects. A species so ancient and advanced, they treated the laws of physics as mere suggestions. Their technology was not built. It was grown, crystalline structures of perfect, self-repairing energy. It did not fail, ever. State the nature of the emergency, Kaelen said, already unclamping the forge from the hull. The voice replied, and for the first time, Kaelen detected a flicker of something beneath the synthesized tone. The Great Hub is experiencing systemic degradation. The phenomenon is designated space-time corrosion. The architects have requested a consultation from a human. The last two words hung in the silence, more shocking than the news of the gate's failure. The architects asking for help was like a god asking an ant for advice on building a mountain. The journey was a blur of sterile transit corridors and whisper-quiet gravlifts. Kaelen's ship, a battered but reliable freighter that smelled of ozone and spilled coffee, felt blasphemously crude when it docked at the architect's home system. The system wasn't a collection of planets and stars in the conventional sense, but a curated orrery of impossible structures. Dyson spheres woven from captured starlight, nebula sculpted into geometric gardens, all arranged with a breathtaking, soulless precision. He was met not by a person, but a presence. It coalesced from the light itself, a towering figure of shifting, interlocking polyhedra that shimmered with an internal cool blue radiance. It was beautiful, perfect, and utterly alien. A voice chimed, not from a speaker, but from the air itself. Each word a perfectly formed musical note.
I am Exelon, custodian of the Ethylan.
Kaelen gave a short, professional nod, his worn, rugged pressure suit a stark contrast to the pristine environment. Kaelen Rask, you have a problem. Exelon corrected, its form momentarily tightening into a sharp crystalline lattice.
A condition, not a problem. A problem implies a solution. This is merely a terminal state, an equation resolving to its inevitable conclusion.
With a gesture of pure light, Exelon conjured a holographic model between them, It was the Ethylan, a spinning, city-sized jewel of impossible complexity. But it was sick. Dark, cancerous veins crawled across its luminous surface. The space-time corrosion. It wasn't a break or a malfunction. It was a fundamental decay of reality itself. A rot that was eating the gate from the inside out. Exelon stated, its tone holding the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a petri dish.
Our systems cannot counteract it. The decay of the quantum foam is a universal constant we had not accounted for in this region, an oversight across a billion-year operational lifespan.
Kaelen stared at the hologram, then at the shimmering being before him. He saw the cold, unassailable arrogance born from an eternity of perfection. He understood then. He hadn't been summoned here to fix anything. He was a curiosity. A primitive craftsman brought in to witness the death of a god so the architects could record the final, elegant moments of their failure. Exelon chimed, its light pulsing with something akin to pity. Observe, human, and witness the beauty of an elegant system coming to its perfect logical end. Chapter 2. The Human Touch. Xylar led Kaelen not through a corridor, but through a fold in space. One moment they were in the sterile docking bay, the next they stood in the void before the Ethylan itself. It was not a machine, it was a symphony made manifest. A spinning, city-sized jewel of pure light and energy that sang a perfect, harmonious chord that resonated not in the ears, but in the soul. It was the sound of creation, pure and unwavering, and it was dying. Kaelen ignored the spectacle. Beauty was a luxury and a distraction. He unslung the heavy canvas satchel from his shoulder, the worn fabric a jarring intrusion in this realm of flawless light. I need to get closer, and I need to attach my own sensors. Xylar's form, a cascade of shimmering fractals, seemed to recoil.
That will not be necessary. Our diagnostic systems are integrated into the very fabric of the gate. They monitor every quantum state in real time. We can provide you with a data stream of perfect fidelity.
Kaelen shook his head, pulling out the first sensor pod. It was a heavy, metallic disc, scarred from 100 different jobs with thick magnetic clamps. Your sensors are listening for the notes you expect to hear. I need to listen for the ones you don't. With a reluctant shimmer, Xylar guided him to the gate's surface. The moment his magnetic boots made contact, Kaelen felt the corrosion. It was a dissonant hum beneath the perfect chord, a grinding sickness that made the teeth ache. He moved with a purpose that bordered on brutish, clamping his heavy, clanking sensor pods onto the pristine crystalline structure. Each thunk of the magnets was an act of profanity in this sacred space. Xylar observed the crude process with a silent, shimmering disapproval, viewing Kaelen's methods as akin to a shaman shaking bones over a dying patient. For hours, Kaelen worked, ignoring the elegant architect interfaces that offered him infinite data. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the hull, his helmet pressed against the humming surface, listening. He wasn't analyzing the corrosion, he was analyzing the gate's reaction to it. He was listening to its song. And he found the flaw. It wasn't in the corrosion, it was in the perfection. The architect's greatest strength was their greatest weakness. Their technology was so uniform, so flawless, that the entire structure resonated at a single pure frequency. The space-time corrosion was not a random decay, it was a specific dissonant vibration that had found the perfect medium to propagate through, like a single sour note turning an entire orchestra into unbearable noise. Their self-repair systems, being equally perfect, only rebuilt the structure with the same fatal flaw, amplifying the resonance with every fix. He stood up, his movements slow and deliberate. He had his answer. It was simple, ugly, and it would be utterly offensive to them. He transmitted a request for a formal audience. He stood before a consciousness, not a council. Dozens of beings like Xylar filled a vast chamber, their combined light a blinding testament to their power. Kaelen kept his helmet on. He felt safer in his own worn, familiar world. "Your gate isn't dying from the corrosion," he began, his voice flat and direct. "It's killing itself. Your perfection is a resonance chamber. The corrosion is the tuning fork, and your gate is the bell that is cracking itself apart with the ringing." A wave of agitated light pulsed through the chamber.
Your metaphor is primitive, but we grasp the concept. You have identified the mechanism, but the mechanism is inherent to the design. It cannot be altered.
"Yes, it can," Kaelen said. "You see the universe as a set of elegant equations. You built a perfect crystal. But the universe isn't a crystal. It's a storm. You need to teach your gate how to bend, not how to be perfect." He projected a schematic from his wrist unit. It showed the Athalan, but it was desecrated. Ugly, brutal lines were slashed across its perfect form. "I'm going to use my void welder to create deliberate, chaotic scars on the gate's matrix. Patches of mismatched quantum signatures and brute force energy infusions. These imperfections will act as resonant fire breaks. They will break up the harmonic uniformity and contain the corrosion. I am going to save your symphony by smashing some of the instruments." A profound, horrified silence filled the chamber. The light from the architects dimmed, shifting from brilliant blue to a deep, wounded violet. Xylar's form trembled, its geometric patterns losing their cohesion.
You propose vandalism, desecration, to introduce a flaw into that which is, by its very nature, flawless? It is an offer to cure a disease by inflicting a greater one.
Xylar's voice was no longer musical. It was cold, sharp, and absolute.
The proposal is rejected. We would rather face oblivion in a state of perfection than endure an eternity of disfigurement.
Chapter 3. The Beauty of Scars. Kaelen didn't argue. He simply gave a slight bow and left the Chamber of Light. He returned to his battered freighter, powered up the ship's ancient coffee machine, and waited. He knew the architects. Their logic was as flawless as their technology, but it was also brittle. Logic could not account for the sheer, stubborn chaos of a universe that didn't play by the rules. Logic would tell them to die with dignity. Reality, however, was rarely dignified. Days passed. From the viewport of his ship, Kaelen watched the Athalan. The sickness was accelerating. The dark veins of corrosion spread like wildfire through a dry forest. The gate's perfect, harmonious song was becoming distorted, interspersed with jarring shrieks of static and pain. He could see smaller crystalline structures on its surface flaking away, turning to dust in the silent void. The architect's network-wide comms, once a symphony of pure data, flickered with panicked, fragmented light. Their perfection was failing, and their logic offered no escape. The summons came not as a polite request, but as a desperate plea. Xylar appeared on his ship's bridge, its form no longer a proud, shifting cascade of perfect geometry, but a flickering, unstable projection. The brilliant blue light had faded to a dull, anxious gray.
The cascade failure has begun. The terminal state is arriving ahead of all projections. The great hub will collapse within the next cycle. It will trigger a sympathetic resonance across the network. Dozens of worlds will be unmade.
Kaelen took a slow sip of his coffee. He didn't say, "I told you so." The trembling light of the being before him was enough. Has the council changed its mind? A wave of what could only be described as agony pulsed from Xylar.
The council is fractured, paralyzed. They have ceded authority. The decision is mine. Proceed. Desecrate our creation. Save us from our perfection.
The climax was a stark and brutal ballet. Kaelen, in his bulky, radiation-scarred suit, floated before the dying jewel. He fired up the forge. The tool roared to life, a guttural scream of raw, chaotic energy that was an obscenity in this silent, sacred space. It spat arcs of untamed plasma, a stark contrast to the silent, effortless hum of architect tech. He braced himself and began to carve into the perfect crystalline face of the gate. It was a violent, painful process. The gate screamed, a psychic shriek that bypassed his helmet's audio dampeners and lanced directly into his skull. The structure fought back, its self-repair systems trying to heal the wounds as he created them, pouring pure energy into the gashes he was making. He had to pour immense, overwhelming power into each weld, scarring the lattice with ugly, asymmetrical patterns of fused, mismatched energy. It was like breaking a bone to set it properly. For the final act, he targeted the heart of the resonance, a primary energy conduit that pulsed with a sickening, feverish light. He pushed the forge to its absolute limit. A thick, searing beam of pure chaos erupted from the tool and slammed into the gate. The Athlon's harmonious song turned into a single deafening roar of static. The entire structure shuddered violently, and for a terrifying moment, it seemed it would tear itself apart. Kaelen was thrown back by the shock wave, his suit's systems screaming warnings. Then, silence. A profound, absolute quiet. The corrosion halted. Its propagation path shattered. The gate was stable. It was saved, but it was no longer perfect. It was scarred, patched, and forever altered. Kaelen, floating exhausted in the void, looked at his handiwork. Where there was once a flawless, shimmering surface, there was now a massive, jagged scar, glowing with a soft, chaotic, and unpredictable light of its own. It was ugly. It was magnificent. The architects were frozen in a state of stunned disbelief. Their perfect creation was alive, but, in their eyes, irrevocably broken. Kaelen opened a channel. You saw the universe as a perfect equation, but you were wrong. The universe is a chaotic storm. Survival doesn't come from being a perfect, rigid crystal that shatters in the first gale. It comes from being a gnarled, weathered tree that has learned to bend. True strength is found in the scars that prove you have endured. The final scene showed Xylar floating alone before the massive, ugly human-made patch on the Athlon. The scar was no longer a dead zone, but was now emitting its own soft, unpredictable light, a new, discordant note in the once perfect symphony. Xylar extended a tendril of pure light and, for the first time, touched the imperfection, not with disdain or horror, but with a dawning, profound, and grudging sense of wonder. The victory was not one of conquest, but of a forced, humbling philosophical enlightenment.